You know, there's nothing like a little R&R when your body, mind, and soul begins to wear down a bit. With this in mind, my wife Kelly and I try to rent a cabin in Tannehill State Park once or twice a year. Such was the case a few months ago when we headed down there. We always get the nail cabin because my great-great-grandmother was born in its original location. Back then it was just a one-room cabin. However, when they moved it, they added a bedroom on the side, a kitchen, dining room, another bedroom, and a bathroom. We normally go alone, but in preparation to go this time, my aunt, who is 78, had made mention that her and her husband would like to stay in the cabin one last time while they were still able. My wife told him that we had it reserved and would love it if they would go with us. We met at the church my wife and I attend after Sunday school and stopped on the way and had some lunch. What a wonderful time we had. We would drive a little and look at the deer, sit on the front porch and relax and talk, and at night I would drag out the old guitar and play while Kelly sang. Kelly has such a beautiful voice, but the meat of this story happened the second day we were there. My uncle suffered a stroke a few years back, and while he has worked hard and regained some mobility, he can't walk a long way or over rugged terrain. But my wife, my aunt, and myself decided to go walking and go see the slave cemetery there on the park. Of course, a Wolford has no need of a map. It's a family trait. We always know a better way to get there. So we set out, the three of us, walking the wonderful trails in the park. We walked and walked and walked and walked, and finally came to a familiar place where the Boy Scout camp was. We had walked for at least a couple of hours, but had yet to find the cemetery we had set out to see. While there, we used the restrooms, and I bought a couple bottles of water, one for my aunt and the other for my wife and I to share. Having squared all that away, we disappeared back into the woods to finish our mission. "It's just right up here," somebody said. I'll not mention any names, but again we walked and walked and walked, up one hill and down the other. We had begun discussing going back, but lo and behold, there laying on the ground was a sign that said Slave Cemetery. Cha-ching! We found it. And even better than that, we had a bar or two on our cell phones, which is hard to come by at Tannehill State Park. Kelly and my aunt made a call to check in on an illness in the family, and we went down to see the cemetery. While there, I noticed a trail going down a hill, and while they were looking around, I walked down it to see where it led. Just a few dozen yards down, it came to another road. It had to be the one we were on earlier that morning, and as far as we had come back that way, we surely weren't that far from where we had started. Bingo! After a short rest, we went down the trail and got on the road. Thankfully, taking this way back would save us a lot of time, and we would be back soon because we knew that my uncle would have been worrying by now. We had been gone for at least 3 hours, and after all, his wife was 78 and it was hot. So off we went, and went, and went. I began double timing out ahead to see what was in front of us. Dirt road and more dirt road. After going well ahead of the girls and not seeing any change in the scenery, I turned and went back to meet them. After a brief discussion, we decided it would be best to go back to the cemetery and try to call the office and explain that we had our 78-year-old aunt with us and to get them to send a truck to pick us up. We walked back to where the path that led up the hill to the cemetery was, and as we got close, we could hear a truck and some voices. Kelly said, "Stop that truck. Lay down in front of it if you have to." She said that with a little too much conviction, I thought. But as the truck came into view, I heard the driver say, "I think we've got him." It was a park vehicle full of what Kelly would later say was the best-looking guys she had ever seen. And at that time, they looked pretty good to me, too. My aunt got up front, and Kelly and I jumped. We crawled up in the back of the truck with 3 or 4 of the guys. I heard the guy on the radio say, "We've got him. The 78-year-old is great, but I'm not sure about the other 2. He was right. My aunt acted like she had just been out for a stroll, and Kelly and I looked as though we had been in the wilderness for 40 years. Well, me anyway. Kelly is always a picture of beauty. It was just tired beauty at that time. As we came into the civilized part of the park, it felt like every eye was on us, and they were thinking, "There they are, that's the dummies they had to go out and rescue." We had been walking about 5 hours when we pulled up to our cabin. The man over the park was sitting there on the front porch with our uncle. He had indeed begun to worry when we had been gone for about 3 hours, and he had gone down to the office and alerted the park director, who wasn't that concerned until he found out my aunt was 78 years old. At that point, he had a vehicle on every path. Everywhere we went the rest of the day, we heard folks talking about the big rescue. But all in all, we had a wonderful stay. Even the long walk was enjoyable once we were looking back and laughing about it. I'll have to say that everyone involved did a wonderful job of taking care of business during the whole ordeal, and I thank them once again for all they did. All I can say is, stop in the little store and get a map of the trails before you set out walking. I'm thinking I might open a guide service there at the park. I'll let you all know where you can make reservations. No, I'm just kidding. I don't even follow myself anymore. I can't wait till next time. If you haven't ever been to Tannehill, it's a real interesting and relaxing place to go. Maybe you'll even see me and Kelly there, but just don't follow us down the path.